Imagine Rome, the eternal city, master of the Mediterranean, seemingly invincible, brought to its knees by one man. A man who crossed the impossible Alps with elephants, who destroyed 8 Roman armies in 16 years, who came so close to erasing Rome from history that Roman mothers would whisper his name to frighten their children for centuries. His name was Hannibal Barca, and he turned the Second Punic War into Rome's greatest nightmare and ultimate transformation. In the next 30 minutes, you'll witness the most audacious military campaign in ancient history. See how one battle killed 50,000 Romans in a single day. Discover the psychological warfare that broke the minds of Roman generals. And learn why this 17-year war changed everything. Not just for Rome and Carthage, but for the entire course of Western civilization. You'll uncover secrets that Roman historians tried to hide, witness tactical genius that modern militaries still study, and understand how the greatest victory in Roman history came from their darkest defeat. But first, let me take you back to a moment in 221 BC when a 25-year-old took an oath that would reshape the ancient world. Picture this scene. Carthage, 237 BC. A 9-year-old boy stands before a blood-stained altar in the temple of Melkart. His father, Hannibal Barca, places the child's small hand on the still warm sacrifice and speaks words that will echo through history. "Swear to me, my son, that you will never be a friend to Rome." The boy's name is Hannibal. And at that moment, as he makes his sacred vow, neither he nor his father realize they're setting in motion events that will bring Rome closer to destruction than it has ever been, or ever will be again. But what drove Hannibal to extract such an oath from his child? The answer lies in the humiliation that still burns in every Carthaginian heart. 24 years earlier, Carthage had lost the First Punic War. The defeat wasn't just military. It was a complete devastation of everything Carthage held sacred. Rome had seized Sicily, Corsica, and Sardinia. They had imposed a crushing indemnity of 3,200 talents of silver, equivalent to $200 million today. But the worst humiliation was yet to come. When Carthaginian mercenaries rebelled over unpaid wages, Rome waited until Carthage was on the verge of victory, then stepped in to support the rebels, seizing Sardinia while Carthage was distracted. The message was clear. Rome didn't just want to defeat Carthage, they wanted to humiliate it, to ensure it could never rise again. They had no idea they were creating their most dangerous enemy. Young Hannibal grows up in Spain, watching his father build a new Carthaginian empire from nothing. But this isn't just territorial expansion, it's preparation for war. Every conquest, every alliance, every tactical innovation is designed with one purpose: revenge against Rome. By age 25, Hannibal has been shaped into the perfect weapon. He speaks 4 languages fluently. He studied every Roman military manual. He knows Roman tactics better than most Roman generals. He's fought in 12 campaigns and never lost a battle. Most dangerously, he understands something about Rome that Romans themselves don't realize. Their greatest strength is also their fatal weakness. Rome's power comes from its alliance system. Hundreds of Italian cities provide troops, supplies, and loyalty. But Hannibal sees what Roman strategists miss. This system depends entirely on Rome appearing invincible. If Rome can be made to look weak, vulnerable, beatable, the entire alliance structure could collapse. And Hannibal has a plan to do exactly that. Spring, 218 BC. Roman ambassadors arrive in Carthage with an ultimatum that shocks the Carthaginian Senate. Surrender Hannibal to Roman justice or face war. The Romans expect Carthage to comply. After all, Carthage is still paying off debts from the last war. Their fleet is reduced. Their African territories are barely pacified. Any rational government would sacrifice one general to avoid annihilation. But the Carthaginian Senate makes a decision that stuns the ancient world. They choose war. Why? Because they know something the Romans don't. Hannibal hasn't just been preparing for war, he's been preparing for a specific kind of war that will turn Rome's advantages against itself. When Hannibal receives word that war has been declared, he does something unprecedented. Instead of sailing directly to Italy, the obvious strategy, he announces his intention to march overland through Spain, Gaul, and the Alps. His own officers think he's lost his mind. The journey is 500 miles through hostile territory. No army has ever crossed the Alps in winter. The logistical challenges are insurmountable. But Hannibal sees what they don't. This impossible march isn't just about getting to Italy. It's about psychological warfare on a scale never attempted before. Summer 218 BC. Hannibal's army sets out from New Carthage, modern Cartagena. But this isn't just a military force, it's a walking demonstration of Carthaginian power and reach. 90,000 infantry from Spain, Africa, and the Balearic Islands. 12,000 cavalry from Numidia, the finest horsemen in the Mediterranean. And 37 war elephants, each one a psychological weapon worth 1,000 soldiers. But the true genius of Hannibal's army isn't its size, it's its diversity. Every major ethnic group in the Western Mediterranean is represented. When Italian cities see this multinational force, they won't just see Carthaginian invaders. They'll see proof that Rome's enemies span the known world. September 218 BC. The army reaches the Rhone River 100 miles from the Mediterranean. Roman forces under Publius Scipio are racing north to intercept them, confident they can trap Hannibal against the river. They arrive to find empty camps and cold ashes. Hannibal has vanished. What the Romans don't know is that they've just witnessed the first demonstration of tactical genius that will define the entire war. While Roman scouts watched his main camps, Hannibal had sent detachments upstream and downstream, crossing at multiple points simultaneously. But the river crossing presents a new problem. How do you get 37 elephants across a fast-flowing river? The solution Hannibal devises is so audacious it seems mythical. His engineers construct massive rafts disguised as land extensions. The elephants, trusting their mahouts completely, walk onto what they believe is solid ground. Only when the rafts are cut loose do they realize they're crossing water. Some panic and overturn their rafts. Others jump into the river and swim, using their trunks as snorkels. The sight of swimming elephants becomes legendary. But more importantly, it demonstrates to Hannibal's diverse army that their commander can overcome any obstacle through intelligence and planning. The army that emerges on the far side of the Rhone isn't just transported, it's transformed. They're no longer soldiers following a general. They're believers following a prophet of war. October 218 BC. The Alps in winter are more than just a geographical barrier. They're a death trap that has claimed entire tribes. Temperatures drop to 40 degrees. Avalanches bury entire columns without warning. The mountain paths are so narrow that a single stumble sends men and animals plummeting thousands of feet. But for Hannibal, the Alps aren't just an obstacle. They're an opportunity. Because if he can bring an army through this frozen hell, he'll arrive in Italy as something more than a general. He'll arrive as a force of nature. As word spreads through Italy that Hannibal is crossing the Alps with elephants, panic spreads faster than his actual army. Roman mothers tell their children that demons are coming from the mountains. Italian allied cities send frantic messages to Rome asking for protection. The psychological impact is exactly what Hannibal planned. He hasn't fought a single Roman legion, but he's already winning the war for Italian minds. But the Alps extract a terrible price for this psychological victory. The crossing takes 15 days that feel like 15 years. Every day brings new horrors. Entire baggage trains vanish into crevasses. Men freeze to death while marching. The elephants, magnificent symbols of Carthaginian power, begin dying one by one. Hannibal loses 50,000 men in the Alps, more than half his army. Only one elephant survives the crossing. By any rational measure, the campaign should be over before it begins. But the army that emerges into the Po Valley isn't just reduced, it's refined. The survivors have endured the impossible together. They've seen their commander share every hardship, face every danger. They would follow him into hell itself, and they're about to prove it. November 218 BC. Hannibal descends into the Po Valley with 20,000 infantry and 6,000 cavalry. Roman scouts report back that the great Carthaginian army has been destroyed by the Alps, reduced to a mere raiding force. They couldn't be more wrong, because what emerges from the mountains isn't just an army. It's a weapon forged in the crucible of shared suffering and absolute belief in their commander's genius. The men who survived the Alps know they can survive anything. The generals who followed Hannibal through the impossible trust him completely, and Hannibal himself has been transformed from a brilliant young commander into something approaching a god of war. The Romans are about to discover what they've created by forcing this march. December 218 BC, Roman consul Tiberius Sempronius Longus commands 40,000 Roman and allied troops, double Hannibal's force. He's confident, even eager for battle. The Carthaginian army is exhausted from the Alpine crossing, weakened by cold and hunger. Hannibal offers him that battle, but what Sempronius doesn't understand is that he's not facing a desperate general seeking a quick victory. He's facing a master psychologist who has spent months studying Roman military doctrine and Roman commander psychology. Hannibal knows that Roman commanders are under immense political pressure. They have 1 year of command to achieve glory and advance their careers. This creates a fatal weakness: impatience. On the morning of December 18th, Hannibal sends his Numidian cavalry to harass the Roman camp before dawn. Sempronius, exactly as predicted, orders an immediate pursuit. His troops march out without breakfast, wade through the icy Trebia River, and arrive at the battlefield already exhausted and freezing. They're walking into the most sophisticated ambush in military history. While Roman attention focuses on Hannibal's main force, his brother Mago has hidden 2,000 picked men in the brushy ravines flanking the battlefield. As the Roman center engages, these forces emerge behind Roman lines. The psychological impact is devastating. Roman soldiers, already cold and hungry, suddenly find enemies behind them as well as in front. The perfect Roman formation dissolves into panicked fragments. 20,000 Romans die in the slaughter, but Hannibal's real victory isn't tactical, it's psychological. Word spreads through Italy the Romans can be beaten. June 217 BC, a new Roman army under consul Gaius Flaminius marches north with 30,000 men. Flaminius is determined not to repeat Sempronius's mistakes. He'll be cautious, methodical, professional. Hannibal studies his new opponent and identifies a different weakness: professional pride. Flaminius prides himself on being a steady, reliable commander. He won't be goaded into hasty action. So Hannibal doesn't try to goad him. Instead, he does something more psychologically devastating. He ignores him. Hannibal marches his army past Flaminius without offering battle, devastating the Italian countryside as he goes. Towns that have been loyal to Rome for generations watch helplessly as Carthaginian forces burn their fields and steal their livestock, while a Roman army does nothing to stop them. The message to Italian allies is clear: Rome cannot protect you. But for Flaminius, the humiliation is unbearable. Finally, he breaks and pursues Hannibal, exactly as Hannibal knew he would. June 21st, 217 BC. Dawn breaks gray and misty over Lake Trasimene. Flaminius's army marches along the narrow shore, hemmed in between the lake and steep hills. Visibility is maybe 50 yards. Hidden in the mist on those hills, Hannibal's entire army waits in perfect silence. 40,000 men holding their breath, waiting for the signal that will trigger the most complete ambush in ancient warfare. At the predetermined moment, war cries echo from every hill simultaneously. The Romans find themselves trapped between the lake and an enemy that seems to emerge from the very air. What follows isn't a battle, it's a massacre. Romans trapped against the water have nowhere to retreat. Those who try to swim are dragged down by their armor. Those who stand and fight are overwhelmed by attacks from multiple directions. Flaminius himself dies in the melee, struck down while trying to rally his men. 15,000 Romans perish in 3 hours. Another 10,000 are captured, but once again, Hannibal's real victory is psychological. He releases all Italian allied prisoners without ransom, keeping only Roman citizens as slaves. His message is clear. This war is between Carthage and Rome. Join us and live in peace. Rome responds to the disaster at Trasimene by abandoning normal politics. They appoint Quintus Fabius Maximus as dictator, absolute ruler with unlimited power to save the state. Fabius is no fool. He understands that Roman armies can't beat Hannibal in open battle. So he develops a new strategy: avoid battle completely. Shadow Hannibal's army, cut off his supplies, let time and attrition do what Roman swords cannot. The strategy is militarily sound, but politically it's suicide. Roman culture glorifies aggressive action and personal courage. Fabius's cautious approach looks like cowardice to Roman citizens. They call him the delayer, and it's not meant as a compliment. Political pressure builds for decisive action. When Fabius's term expires, the Romans elect 2 new consuls committed to offensive warfare: Gaius Terentius Varro and Lucius Aemilius Paulus. They raise the largest army in Roman history, 86,000 men, 8 full legions plus an equal number of allied troops. This massive force has one mission: destroy Hannibal once and for all. Hannibal is waiting for them. Summer 216 BC. Hannibal seizes the Roman supply depot at Cannae in southeastern Italy. It's a calculated provocation designed to force the massive Roman army into battle on ground of his choosing. The Romans take the bait exactly as predicted. They march south with their 86,000 men, confident that sheer numbers will overcome Carthaginian tactical skill. They're about to learn why Hannibal is remembered as the greatest tactical genius in military history. August 2nd, 216 BC. The 2 armies deploy on the plain of Cannae. To Roman observers, Hannibal's formation looks almost suicidal. His 50,000 men are outnumbered nearly 2 to 1. Worse, he's placed his weakest troops, recently recruited Gauls and Spaniards, in the center of his line, directly opposite the strongest Roman legions. Roman commanders Varro and Paulus see what appears to be a gift from the gods: a chance to crush Hannibal's center and roll up his flanks. They order the attack, confident of victory. They're walking into the most sophisticated tactical trap ever devised. The battle unfolds exactly as Hannibal planned. The Roman center smashes into his deliberately weakened line, driving the Gauls and Spaniards back. Roman commanders congratulate themselves. They're breaking Hannibal's army at last. But the retreat is controlled, deliberate. As Hannibal's center gives way, it forms a crescent shape that draws the Romans deeper and deeper into a killing sack. Meanwhile, Hannibal's African veterans on the flanks wheel inward, attacking the Roman flanks. His Numidian cavalry, having defeated the Roman horse, strikes the Roman rear. By noon, 86,000 Romans are trapped in a space barely 500 yards square. They can't maneuver, can't retreat, can't even swing their weapons effectively. Hannibal's forces attack from every direction simultaneously. The slaughter continues for 8 hours. When the sun sets, 50,000 Romans lie dead on the field, including Consul Paulus, 80 senators, and hundreds of Rome's finest officers. It's the most complete tactical victory in military history. In a single day, Hannibal has killed more Roman soldiers than died in most entire wars. That night, as Hannibal surveys the field carpeted with Roman dead, his cavalry commander Hannibal approaches with urgent advice. "Lord, give me the cavalry, and in 5 days you'll dine in the capital. You know how to win victory, Hannibal, but you don't know how to use it." Hannibal refuses. Instead of marching on Rome immediately, he chooses to consolidate his victory, secure his base, and wait for Roman allies to defect. It's a decision that historians will debate for 2,000 years. Some call it prudent strategy. Others call it the mistake that saved Rome. But what happens next suggests Hannibal understood something that Hannibal didn't. Hannibal's refusal to march on Rome immediately isn't hesitation. It's psychological warfare at the highest level. By not attacking when Romans expect annihilation, he creates something more valuable than military conquest. He creates doubt. Romans begin to wonder if Hannibal doesn't need to destroy Rome to defeat Rome. What does that mean for their entire worldview? If the eternal city isn't eternal, what is? This psychological uncertainty spreads through Roman society like a plague. Within months of Cannae, the results of Hannibal's strategy become clear. Italian cities that have been loyal to Rome for generations begin switching sides. Capua, the second largest city in Italy, opens its gates to Hannibal. Syracuse declares for Carthage. Even some Latin cities waver in their loyalty. Hannibal's intelligence network reports that Rome itself is in chaos. Senators debate abandoning the city entirely. Some Romans are selling their property and fleeing to Sicily or Spain. For a moment, it seems like Rome might simply collapse from internal pressure. But Rome's response to existential crisis reveals why it would eventually conquer the world. Instead of surrendering or seeking terms, the Romans make a decision that shocks the ancient world. They refuse to acknowledge that defeat is possible. The Senate passes a decree forbidding even discussion of peace negotiations. They raise new armies from boys and old men. They arm slaves and promise them freedom. They empty the treasury to hire mercenaries. Most importantly, they promote a new generation of commanders who understand that beating Hannibal requires becoming like Hannibal. The most promising of these new commanders is a 24-year-old named Publius Cornelius Scipio, son of the general who first tried to intercept Hannibal at the Rhone. He has studied every one of Hannibal's battles, analyzed every tactical innovation. But Scipio's genius isn't just copying Hannibal's methods. It's understanding Hannibal's strategic vision and turning it against him. Instead of confronting Hannibal directly in Italy, Scipio proposes something audacious. Attack Carthaginian Spain and cut off Hannibal's reinforcements and supplies. It's exactly the kind of indirect strategy that Hannibal himself might devise. The young general lands in Spain with 2 legions and proceeds to demonstrate that he's learned Hannibal's lessons perfectly. At the Battle of New Carthage, he uses a double envelopment. At Becula, he employs psychological warfare. At Ilipa, he executes tactical deceptions that would make Hannibal proud. By 206 BC, Scipio has conquered all of Carthaginian Spain. With Spain lost, Hannibal's position in Italy becomes untenable. He can no longer receive significant reinforcements or supplies from home. Meanwhile, Roman armies under Fabius's defensive strategy are slowly wearing down his forces through constant skirmishing. But Hannibal still has one last card to play. His brother Hasdrubal is marching from Spain with a fresh army to reinforce him. If the brothers can unite their forces, they might still achieve final victory. Roman intelligence discovers Hasdrubal's march and makes a desperate gamble. They intercept his army at the Metaurus River while he's still hundreds of miles from Hannibal. The battle is close, but Roman numbers finally tell. Hasdrubal dies fighting and his army is destroyed. A few days later, Hannibal is camped in southern Italy when Roman cavalry approaches under a flag of truce. They toss something at his feet and ride away without a word. It's his brother's severed head. For the first time since crossing the Alps, Hannibal understands that his war is lost. 202 BC. After 16 years of campaign in Italy, Hannibal is recalled to defend Carthage itself. Scipio has landed in North Africa and is threatening the Carthaginian capital. The two greatest generals of the ancient world finally meet at Zama, outside Carthage. Hannibal commands 40,000 men, many of them veterans who have followed him for decades. Scipio has 35,000 Romans and Numidians, but the student has learned well from the master. Using Hannibal's own tactical innovations against him, Scipio wins the decisive victory that ends the Second Punic War. The Second Punic War transformed Rome from a regional Italian power into a Mediterranean superpower. The lessons learned fighting Hannibal: strategic thinking, tactical flexibility, psychological warfare, and above all, the absolute refusal to accept defeat, would carry Roman eagles to the Atlantic and the Euphrates. But more than changing Rome's military doctrine, the war changed Roman character. Before Hannibal, Romans saw themselves as one Italian city among many. After surviving his onslaught, they saw themselves as destined rulers of the world. Yet victory came at an enormous cost. Over the 17 years of war, Rome lost an estimated 300,000 soldiers, nearly 10% of its entire population. Entire generations of Roman families were wiped out. The psychological trauma lasted for centuries. Roman mothers would frighten disobedient children by whispering, "Hannibal ad portas," Hannibal at the gates. The name became synonymous with existential terror. But perhaps most significantly, Rome learned that survival sometimes requires becoming what you fight against. The flexible, ruthless, psychologically sophisticated empire that emerged from the Punic Wars bore little resemblance to the rigid city-state that had entered them. The Second Punic War teaches us something profound about the nature of conflict, adaptation, and survival. Hannibal proved that tactical genius and strategic vision could overcome seemingly impossible odds. But Rome proved that cultural resilience and adaptive capacity could outlast even the most brilliant individual leadership. Today, military academies around the world still study Hannibal's campaigns. Business schools analyze his strategic thinking. Psychologists examine his leadership methods because the Second Punic War wasn't just about Rome versus Carthage. It was about the clash between individual genius and institutional strength, between tactical brilliance and strategic endurance, between the possible and the impossible. In the end, the Second Punic War raises a question that echoes through history. What happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? For 17 years, Hannibal was the unstoppable force, brilliant, adaptable, seemingly invincible. Rome was the immovable object, stubborn, resilient, absolutely refusing to admit defeat. The answer? Both are transformed forever. Hannibal created the Rome that would conquer the world, and Rome created the legend of Hannibal that would inspire military leaders for 2 millennia. Neither would ever be the same.